Hey, welcome Broken World Entertainment, and this is the review for Ahsoka Episode 4, which I believe was called The Fallen Jedi, or maybe The Fallen Hero. I think it's The Fallen Jedi. This episode picks up right where last week's episode ended, with Ahsoka, Sabine, and the dumbass droid, what's he called? Hugh Wang, or something like that, on the planet. The funny thing about planets in Disney Star Wars is everything you need to be close by is exactly what you seem to end up landing beside. The same way, everything all of a sudden seems to be in Tatooine. Well, these dumbasses managed to land 12 clicks, they said, away from where Balin is. Not a coincidence. An entire planet, and they managed to land right next to where they're going to be. This episode is basically, we're just going into full spoilers, by the way, because there's, once again, nothing really to spoil, except we get two reveals. Morrock, who is he? Or possibly she. And a surprise at the end, which will probably have the internet screaming and going, that's the best thing ever. This episode is basically the let's slowly walk up to each other, stare at each other for 2 minutes before we start fighting. Literally. So, Sabine and Hayun, or Hayang, what the hell's that stupid ass droid called? Hugh Wang. They're trying to repair the ship. Ahsoka is doing Ahsoka crap by pretty much wandering around just looking bored. They're being watched by one of the droids, because if you remember last week, Balin sent out his people to find them. Handy that they landed close by. They get ambushed. The big space donut. It's the big ring, hyperspace ring. It's called the Eye of She or Siren or some crap like that. It sounds borderline the Eye of Siren. Siren, sorry. Yeah. That thing is now in the atmosphere of the planet. They've brought it down so they can turn on the map and pinpoint directly through it where they're heading. Luckily for the episode and the plot device, it takes like goddamn a half hour for the thing to actually get the coordinates uploaded. Imagine trying to load a game on a Commodore 64. How long it took. That is what it's like to download the coordinates into this big space donut, as I like to call it. Hera is going to take Ghost, which is the ship that fans of Clone Wars and Rebels will know very well. For other casual fans and casual viewers, it's the ship from Rebels and Clone Wars. It's called Ghost. She's taking that to go and find and help Ahsoka and Sabine. She's not meant to take it, and she's not meant to leave. The guy's like, you can't go. And she's like, well, you're not stopping me. And he's like, what am I going to tell the other generals? And she's like, you'll come up with something. It's funny how she went from I'm a general, nothing is classified to me, to I'm a general who can't put a rescue party together or get permission. It's so stupid. It gets worse. She knows what Ahsoka and Sabine have gone up against. She knows that they've lost communication, and she knows she's going to try and help them. So much so, she brings 6 X-Wings with her, who's led by none other than the X-Wing pilot who's been popping up in all of Star Wars Disney's. The old Asian dude who was the father in the streaming show Kim's Convenience, which was a funny show. Check that out. That's right. He seems to be the only goddamn X-Wing pilot. You know, the one who was hired and gave the coin thing to Cara Dune. Him. So she knows all this. She has to take back up everything else. What does she do? She just brings her son along. Jason. Yeah, that's right. She brings the son along. Because why wouldn't you? What could possibly go wrong? Balin sends Shin and Marok, whatever the hell he's called. Or she. Ooh. To stop Ahsoka and Sabine from reaching them to get the map because it's taken forever for the thing to load up. Morgan, what's she called? Morgan Elsbeth tells Balin like, oh, they're not going to be able to stop them. And he said about the security, and he's like, yeah, but Shin will, and they'll slow them down. So they go off. They're trying to upload the coordinates. Morgan goes back up to the big space donut. Ray Stevenson, by the way, is still the best thing about the show. And we actually get a decent amount of him in this one. We then go to Ahsoka and Sabine running through the forest. And they come across Shin and Marok. This is the first part where we get the long, unbearable stares that takes forever for someone to say anything or to do anything. So they stop running, they're staring. Shin jumps down the little hill kind of thing she's standing on. They are all just staring at each other. She tilts her head a little to the side. And then eventually says, going somewhere. Yeah, cringe line. Which is preceded by them still standing there staring at each other for like what feels like 5 minutes. It's probably at least 30 seconds before Sabine starts trying to take shots at Shin. Like she's firing her blasters at her. Which Shin is deflecting with her lightsaber, and the two of them go running off into the forest. Which leaves Ahsoka to face Marok. These two start fighting. Every now and again we're going back to Balin and Morgan, and it's like just, it goes back to them just to watch this thing download. And then we're back. Shin has gotten the better of Sabine. She's taken the blasters out of her hand, so now it's a duel of sabers between the two of them. They're going at it. I don't know why Shin just doesn't force choke her, but alright. She forces her into a tree and they continue. And then we see Ahsoka having the worst fight again with Marok. I really don't think they gave Rosario Dawson time to train. You know the way Hayden Christensen and Ewan McGregor and Ray Park and all talked about when they were training with lightsabers to do the fight scenes. They were training for like 6 months. I think they gave her 6 days. She's so bad, so slow, and you can tell that it's also, you know, no one in the editing team thought, well, let's speed this up a bit. But she's fighting Marok. Marok turns on his helicopter blade. By the way, at one point, she goes in for a strike and he blocks it with one end of the blade. He has both blades out. And the way he's holding it and blocking, all he had to do was just push the bottom one in and boom, he would have killed her. No. He stands there, they break apart. He starts spinning it, doing the helicopter thing, and he takes a lunge and she just goes, whip, one slice and he's dead. Yep. But don't worry, we get the reveal. of who exactly Morok or Marok, however you want to pronounce it, who they actually are. Are they Ezra? Did she just kill Ezra? Is it Starkiller? Maybe it's not even a he. Maybe it's a she. Maybe it's Riva. Who is it? Who have we all been waiting for? Were any of us right? Every one of us was wrong because it was green smoke. And no, I'm not lying or messing. It was green smoke. A big plume of green smoke comes out of the suit and flies off or vanishes, to Sheev's horror, because now she realizes it's 2-on-1. Until, that is, Sabine tells Ahsoka, no, you go ahead, I've got this. So they continue their fight while she goes running off. She arrives, and their plan is, if they can't retrieve the map, to destroy the map. And she told Sabine this at the beginning. She says to her, you know, sacrificing finding Ezra is more important than letting Thrawn arrive back, so he could become heir to the Empire. She said the line, oh no. She arrives up. The map thing is still turned on, by the way, because it needs to be on to upload the coordinates into the space donut. She walks around, Balin sitting there, and he says, Anakin spoke highly of you, and she says to him, funny, he never mentioned you. And he responds by saying, everybody knew Anakin. And most people who survived to see what he became. This part is insane. So he takes off the cloak. He's obviously getting ready for battle. She takes off her poncho and says, like, we're not here to discuss my history. This part is incredible. Is like, it's nuts. So they ignite their lightsabers and walk around each other for at least 2 minutes, not saying a word. They then get into position, change their stance, and you're watching this happen for like what feels like eternity before Ahsoka finally makes a move. And you're like, they're trying to build suspense, but holy shit, do they not know how to build suspense. This thing of, let's stand there and stare at each other for 20 goddamn minutes and not say a word to each other. And after they have that quick little burst, you get to watch them take up a new stance and a new pose before we go back to Sabine and Shin. Shin disarms Sabine. She, not like cutting her hand off or anything, because the lightsabers don't seem to do that anymore. They cut through trees fine, but other than that, at this terrible moment, Sabine tries to force push Shin. She throws her hand out, and Shin, the way she turns, it looks like there was actually a bit of force push happening. But then you realise, oh, she's turning away out of natural reaction. Not maybe even to the force. Maybe she thought she was throwing something. It's just her turn. But it makes you think, like, oh, did she just use the force? To which Shin responds, you have no powers. And with Sabine's arm still extended out, she fires those little cannon things on her wrist. She starts firing them. She fires, hits the lightsaber out of Shin's hand. At this point, you think Shin can use the force to pick the lightsaber back up. Shin could force choke Sabine. No. Instead, she throws a smoke bomb at her and runs away. To which then Sabine jumps up, grabs her lightsaber, and instantly runs off as well. At this point, Hera and the X-Wings have showed up. They're being told you can't let the space donut leave under any circumstances. They went back to the fight, and Ray Stevenson and Balin basically is like starting to overpower Ahsoka. Ahsoka gets the map, and it burns her hand, which deactivates the upload. So they have to wait on the space donor for Balin to re-establish the connection. He's starting to overpower Ahsoka, and then Shin arrives, and Ahsoka sees Shin and immediately thinks, well, if she's here, then Sabine is dead. So Balin tells Shin get the map, and she all of a sudden stops and gets forced, choked, and thrown against the rock and knocked out by Ahsoka. To which then immediately Sabine shows up and tells Balin, because Balin now has Ahsoka right at the edge of the cliff, and like he just went to town on her with the lightsaber, overpowering her, and Sabine shouts, let her go or I'll destroy it. Ahsoka tells her to destroy it. She's holding the map and a blaster to it. He just whips the lightsaber up and hits Ahsoka off of the cliff, and then has a speech with Sabine about giving him the map, joining him. He'll bring her along to find Ezra, so she could find Ezra and he can get what he wants. And that it takes a great evil and destruction to start anew and all this type of crap. And gives her his word that she won't be harmed. She's just watched her master being thrown off a cliff. She knows these are the bad guys. They know they can't under any circumstance let these people get there. What's her response? Her response is, yeah, alright. And just gives him the fucking map back. As he's going to place it, Sabine starts choking, and it's Shin. Shin's finally force choking her. To which Balin tells her, release her. Unlike her master, I keep my promises. So they cuff her, they bring her up to the big fucking space donut. Hera and the squadron of X-Wings, who were like right next to the planet, are still traveling towards it. Like the first shot you see them going towards the planet is like, oh, they're like 10 seconds away from entering its atmosphere. Until they are not, they're further away. Big space donut comes up, and they go into hyperspace and blast right through that entire fleet. The Ghost and 6 X-Wings. Which destroys all but 2 of the X-Wings and Ghost. Everything else is destroyed. So Ghost and 2 X-Wings are fine. Of course, the X-Wings are fine. You don't see who's in the other one, but of course, Captain Obvious is in the other one. The only guy who seems to be a pilot. Explain the holdo maneuver now, Last Jedi supporters and defenders, because this thing just ploughed through all these ships, and all it did was basically push them out of the way. The reason the other X-Wings got destroyed is because they smashed into each other. So where's Ahsoka? Well, she wakes up. What appears to be in water, but it's not. She is in the time thing. That's, what's it called? The time between times or something. I can't even remember what it's called now. I've completely forgotten. She's in that thing that Ezra saved her from Vader in. The time yoke. And she hears a voice. And the voice calls her by her old nickname. Who is it? Well, she responds, Master. And a voice says, I wasn't expecting to see you here so soon. And she turns around, and what do we get? The big reveal. It's Anakin Skywalker, Hayden Christensen. And the one thing I'll give them for this one, although it looks bad, is they tried to de-age him this time. Not like have them be like a 21-year-old in Obi-Wan in the flashback training before Revenge of the Sith, where he looked fucking 40. He was meant to be in his 20s. They de-aged him this time, but it still doesn't look good. And that's where the episode ends. Which means it looks like we're all going to be right, and Thrawn isn't going to be in this show until the last two episodes. Because we know an episode coming up is meant to be all different versions of events, where Ahsoka is in place of certain people. So we know Ahsoka is meant to fight Anakin on Mustafar and stuff like that. We know there's meant to be younger Ahsokas. So episode 5 is clearly going to be a full-on Anakin Ahsoka episode. So you're not getting Thrawn for until at least the last two episodes. Maybe the very end of the next episode, but doubtful. But there you go. That's episode 4. A lot of let's stand here and stare at each other for 10 minutes before we actually start fighting. So Morok's big reveal was a waste because he was just a cloud of smoke. Anakin's back de-aged, and obviously not Vader. Vader's team plays right as the screen goes dark as well. But yeah, it's still just boring, slow, and going nowhere. But what can you do? So with that, I'll leave it there for this one. So cheers, and I'll catch you in the next one.